we have been discussing quite a bit the 2,730 year curse and the release of that curse and what that means. Coming to an end of the Ezekiel curse, we reached the year 2010, the interchange between 2010 and 2011. Now, our Abba Yahweh, he continually works in a mishkan, or a pattern, a sequence of events that clearly repeat themselves. We're looking at a pattern of 22 letters made up by sevens times 3. 21 letters, really, because the Aleph and the Tav are combined. They layer upon each other. When you reach to Tav, if you put an Aleph beside it, you're done. There is no repeat button. There is no recycle. There is no continue on. That's the meaning of Tav. Matot, dead, done. No more sleeping. So we come to this understanding that the whole Mishkan pattern, everything that has to do with Aleph Bet, there are no numbers, there are no Greek and Roman mindset and thoughts. We're looking at the pure Abrahamic, our forefathers of Yitzhak, Yaakov, and what they saw. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wasn't there. What was there was Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, and Zayin. So does it not seem completely natural that the counting of days would match exactly that same pattern? I have yet to hear any argument against this, because it has become essential to understanding exactly what moment and what day we are in, because absolutely we are in the days of Noah. And I mean that in literal, intense amounts of exact days. We have to come to an understanding of what the Mishkan pattern is and how Avraham, Moshe, and the rest would have appeared, or would have looked upon, the tablets of showbread, daily showbread, to understand how to number and count and know what day it is. Again, I state emphatically and repeat over and over again, they did not worship the sun, nor the moon, nor the stars, nor the creation of the earth, and would not use a representation or an image of, according to the calendar, numbering of days in any way, shape, or form. The only permissible use of counting or numbering in the times that we're speaking of would have been the Aleph, Bet, and the Mishkan pattern, a continuation of sevens. Sevens times 7 times. Why would you count the Feast of Shavuot, Shin Bet Tav, Aleph Tav? The Feast of Shavuot, or it's more literally translated, the Feast of the Counting of Weeks, the Week of Weeks, 7 days, 7 times. Why would you come to the 50th day, the Yom Echad, the Yom Bikurim, the day of the Feast of First Fruits, which was experienced over on, when you began that counting, on day 22, the first day of the week, after counting a pattern of 3 sevens, on the first day of the week, the 22nd day of Abib, is what's called Yom Echad, or Yom Bikurim, the first Feast of First Fruits. We have an example of what that first fruit is in this first Chodesh. We gather the Abib, still green budding grasses. 3 weeks of growth from the time when the snow melts or winter is over, which would be the marker of the spring equinox. The Yom Echad, Yom Drosh Chodesh, the final and first day of the year. When we watch and wait for this day and its total equality, which is still today, completely and totally unpredictable by man when that will be. In fact, this year they were off by a total of 4.5 days. Pretty long amount of time to be off. So, Abba Yahweh, our great Father in the Shamayim, he did predict this. He did, should we say, prophesy through the mouth of his prophets, speak his own will into their hearts so that they could speak it upon those who were listening and understood and were part of Yasharal, the straightforward, that there is a pattern of 7 days, and it doesn't change. 7 days, 7 times. You must count your Feast of Weeks first. Set your stones. Set them 21. And on the 22nd day, the Aleph and the Tav. You should mark this and start again. Now begin by counting a Feast of Weeks, a 7 times 7 process of the exact same thing. Now, like I said to begin with, they didn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. They had Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, and Zayin. This must be simple enough for a tiny baby at the age of 3 years old to be able to comprehend and absorb. This is the Mishkan pattern. It is our very absolute beginning language. A, ba, ga, da, hua, z. If you watch the pattern of a baby and how he learns his sounds, this is how it happens. Still today, whether you're Hebrew or not, every baby does this. So does it not make sense? Absolute 100% couldn't actually be another way that the Mishkan pattern must fold on top of the counting and numbering of days. If that is the case, then on the 22nd day of Yom Bikurim, of the Abib, of the counting, then he explains to us that that day is also the first day of the week and the first day that you begin to count your Feast of Weeks. Shavuot, Shabbatot. Now, Shabbatot is clearly plural. It is absolutely something that repeats. Why would you not continue? Stop at 50 days, and then what do? Transfer over to a Babylonian counting of ways and numbering of days and start counting by 30? Oh, not even 30. Let's say on random 28 to 30. It's sometimes 31. How does that fit into the Mishkan pattern? How does that counting and numbering even make any sense? How can you fit and prove that? That's what I want to know. Because the only thing I can see is that some people are standing on a book that is not necessarily something you could stand on, the book of Enoch and the book of Jasher. These two books are not necessarily 100% proof that this is the way it goes. No. The two books that are 100% proof of the way it goes is Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1 through 3, Leviticus 23, and Deuteronomy chapter 16. Not the books of Enoch and Jasher. In the books of Enoch and Jasher, when we do see the accounting of calendar and numbering of days, he is very clearly laying out the pattern of the Mazarot. He's not laying out the numbering of months and calendars. He's showing you where the doors of the sun and the moon and the stars are and how far apart they are. Now translate the language of Jasher. Give me a Hebrew text in which I can count out and number my days clearly without and match it to the text that I mentioned before. That's an impossibility. I'll just say this. Don't even try. Really, please don't. It is an impossibility because it's just plain not there. What's described in the text of Genesis chapter 1 is 7 days, was described in the text of Leviticus chapter 23 is 7 days, 3 weeks. On the 22nd day is your marked Aleph Tav day. This is the day to look for. And really, it is the day to look for, because that's the day of the feast of when Yahushua Mashiach rose again, ascended. It's an important day to mark and understand which one it is. Next, we come to a completion of how and when we have come to this understanding that at the end of the counting of the first Feast of Weeks, we should stop. Now, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in many other places, and in the plain text, a Feast of Weeks is celebrated a fullness of a week, which is 7 days, which means 7 times. Now, there are, and I don't have them right in front of me, I probably should, but I don't right now. There are several references that say, especially in the book of Baruch, but that aside, since it's an apocryphal book out of the canon, we're going to look at many different places. Prophets, the Nevi'im, have gave reference to that if you go outside of a day, outside of a 364-day year, then you will get it wrong. Now, this is a great mystery to many, because clearly the sun shows us, the Shemesh shows us a pattern of 365 point something days. Well, how does that 5 point something days work in? I say something because every few years, whenever they feel like changing it, they do. Go look at their patterns. I've looked hundreds of years back. But we see this continual returning to a cycle of sevens, a week of weeks. It's described so many times. Count for yourselves, a week of weeks. Now, let's slow that down. A week is an Omer count in this text, in this understanding. In the text itself, it says, count for yourselves an Omer, which is literally translated 50 days. Count for yourself a full Omer. That means a full basket, a full Vav Mem Resh. Well, if you layer out the pattern of days clearly in a set of blocks and stones layered upon each other, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, one set. Chet, Tet, Yod, Kof, Lamed, Mem, Nun, second set. Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzadi, Kof, Reshin, third set. What does that look like? In the 6th day, we see clearly the letters Vav, Mem, and Resh. You can't come to a completeness of Omer unless you have counted out Vav, Mem, Resh twice. 50. Don't forget the last Vav, or the 7th branch of this week. Now, fitting absolutely perfectly on top of this pattern, we see the pattern of the menorah, what is laid out for us to see and understand of the menorah, or the 7-branched candlestick. We know that the menorah has something to do with the calendar as well, and that the menorah has absolutely, they would not have used numbers, they used the Aleph Bet. 3 wicks per 7 candles. So, if you count out a week of weeks, a full week of weeks, like I said, let's slow this down. A week, 7 of these weeks, like the literal Shabbatot, which means 7 Sabbaths. Count for yourselves 7 weeks of 7 Sabbaths. How can I say it any clearer? It doesn't stop at day 50 for the first time. Nowhere in the calendrical scrolls of the temple scrolls do we see a stopping point, or a don't do this anymore. We see a continuance. There's the other types of the feasts of first fruits. There's more than one. There's more than just barley that the fields of Yasharel produced. And would it not make sense, then, that we would have an agricultural representation of what each one of these steps of the 7 Bikurim would be? And how do we fit into Scripture and understanding that there is somehow injected into the text so slyly by the Masoretics, clearly when you really look at it, and Karaites in Babylon, so forth, that they have taken and obstructed it in its translation and saying that there is anything more than 7 months, 7 counts of weeks, a week of weeks. What I'm alluding to is that there would be, in any way, shape, or form, months of more than 10, 11, 12, 9 to 8. The 8th month is in Scripture. The 8th month is in Scripture, so that one's not mistranslated, but it is absolutely twisted and made completely confusing of how to discern where is the 8th month then. Well, of course, the 8th month is that of Abib, the 1st and the 7th. All of that, but that I'll explain later. But the 8th Chodesh is something that is very, very kadosh, and something that once you go through the Sukkot, the 7th month Sukkot, the Sukkot that falls in the dead of winter, which makes understanding all of the text that you are now able to interpret if you can see this. I'm intently serious, because you can't see the text until you can see the layering of the week of weeks and have a year of 364 days and an accounting of that 365th day, which is the 1st. Sometimes it hangs in the middle. A pattern of 3 days and 3 nights is how all of this is built on. A pattern of 3 weeks we have in the beginning. Abib, 3 days and 3 nights. Now if you layer that upon each other and you look at 7 weeks counted out with a beautiful Mishkan pattern, we see the interpretation. You can see, I have been able to see now, how Dalit fits into all of these pictures, how the Abba's hand clearly moves in and arranges his festivals and his days. You can know what time that the Shamayim will open and the voice will come forth. These are extremely sacred matters, and absolutely would make sense that the 2,730-year curse directly correlates with the understanding and the blinding that comes to this. Something so simple, so clearly written out in the text, yet no man has seen this, and still it's rejected. A week of weeks is a week of weeks. How can we get any more clear? 7 Bikurim do appear in the text, and the 7th month is declared as Yom Terumah and the Feast of Shavuot and the end of the year. No more after that. The 7th month is the last month, the 7th Omer count, the 364th day. We arrive to the final Yom Terumah, where the trumpets are blown again throughout the whole 7 weeks, from the first rising of the first day. The 6th has come to a close, and at the rising, the Yom Echad day, the trumpet and the shofar blows. It is the 7th month. We have arrived. Get ready, Yasharal. Here comes our king. On the 9th, he says, prepare yourselves for the 9th day. He didn't, wait. He didn't say 9. He said, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet. He said Tet. On the Erev Laila, At the going down of the sun, at the point where the sun is exactly even at the horizon level, and you are about to enter into Lila. At the middle point, the exact even point. Everything is even. Erev Lila. The going down of the sun, the Shemesh, of the Erev Lila of the ninth day, Yom Kaparim. Bien. Now, if you look at the pattern of days, the ninth is the third day of the week. Now, on the third day of the week at night, we are reaching at the Erev Laila. He says, cut off, for in the Boker Erev, you will be entering into the fullness of the day of coverings. Kafar, cover. Pitch, sticky tar made out of a very sacred substance, a plant which still grows today, to cover the ark with on the interior and the exterior. This siphon, this special sap, is what is kafar. Kav, pei, shesh. Kafar means to be completely covered from all of the affliction that you will go through on this day. For it says in the text, any of Yasharal who does not suffer afflictions upon this day shall be cut off from among his people. I know a day that correlates directly to this one. This calendar, a numbering of days has been able for me to be able to pinpoint, target, tet, literally hit the center point. And you can too. That's why I'm begging you to get to this, please. This isn't an imagination. This isn't fanciful goings on of a silly woman. A week of weeks, the 7th of Bikurim. And in the 7th month, Yom Terumah cries out on the Yom Achad, when the 6th is over and the first day of the 7th month has begun. On the Tet, the Erev Laila of Tet, before we reach Yod, Chet, Tet, Yod. Apologize. I think I said earlier that Tet was the third day. Yod is the third day. Tet is the second. The cutoff. We're going to enter into the third day. And now, there's a cutting off that he puts out there, that this is unnatural to the, or this is something different than what your regular pattern when concerning these days. Because he says, now, on the Erev Laila, like Pesach, alluding to how Pesach is, cut yourselves off, or else I will cut you off from among the people. There's division, there's clear separation between this day and the next day. What day exactly would that correlate to on the Roman numerical calendar? If we've got the real one, we should be able to do that, right? Sure, it was one of the first things I wanted to know, so I did it. What day did it come to? I don't remember. Sorry, I have my work in front of me. I'll have to cut that out or something. It's a cutoff, okay? I apologize. I'll pull it out of here in a minute. We'll see. I have in front of me. It's 4 o'clock in the morning right now. Which is my point. There's a lot of adjustments to the Roman numerical way of counting time and days. Everybody's hours off. Everybody's days off. And really, if you truly look at it, nobody's in line. They're not even in step with their own days, nor do they know how to make sense out of any of it. So at the cutoff of Tet, we enter into the third day. Now the third day of the third week Yod correlates to the letter Yod. Chet, tet, Yod. There is an intense amount of scripture that correlate to the third month and the third day, the second month and the second week of the third day. There's also scripture that correlates to this, and there is a really great big place that Yahweh says, on this day, Noah, open ye the doors of the ark on the second month and the 10th day in the Erev Boker. So where is this? Wait, I want to make this note. There's a division here that the morning, the sunrise, is starting the day. Open the doors at the sunrise, he said. So the day begins at the third day. But yet, over here in the text in Yom Kafarim, we have now close or shut the door, or even cut off completely on the second day of the week at the Erev Lila. So it's almost like this division happens between the second and the third that he really wants us to pay attention and notice. So let's side note it. There's a division there between the 9th and the 10th. Between the Tet and the Yod. Now, if you really understand the letters, then clearly there is a division between Tet and Yod. That makes sense. Yod comes with the power of the full power and the strength and the mighty arm of Yahweh, because he has opened the doors of the ark on that day. Yod, Bet Yod, the door of his home. Next, in the Yod day, he says specifically, be ye covered on this day, for anyone who does not suffer affliction on this day shall be cut off from among his people. Well, we'll go into what that could mean, and is probably meaning another time. But moving on, we experience after the third day, Yod, then what some of the rabbis and other people have really done a lot to step up. And there's reason for it, but they call the next 4 days the days of Aliyah, or the days of ascension, even the days of prayer, total dedication to prayer. If we look at the letters that correlate to this, we have Kaf, Lamed, Mem, and Nun. Kaf, Lamed, the first day. Kaf, the fourth day. Lamed, the second day of prayers, correlating to the fifth day. Mem, the third day of prayers, correlating to the sixth day. And Nun, the seventh day, Shabbat noon. There's a layering going on there. There's a pattern being displayed and affirmed to. Because in the first day we see the fourth breath of this. The Yom Kafarim. Yom Kafarim. Kafarim is spelled Kaf Pei Resh. Kafard is its root. Kaf Pei Resh. Im Yod Mem is just the plurality of it, the singularity of it. So Kafard, Kaf Pei Resh, the root of the word itself begins with Kaf, its center Pei, and its final letter Resh. Now interpreted, you start with Pei, the mouth, the spoken one, Resh, the king, and Kaf, the Torah teaching lines and instructions. So this is a very kingly word. Definitely something to do with something gonna be spoken, a covering, a cave, even protected over is kind of the Pei sense here. With the Resh, protected over you, but put something over you. and the kaf applied by the palm of your hand like an artist would. Meaning it's going to take a lot of processing. The kaf shows it takes processing to get this thing done. Line upon line, here a little, there a little, precept upon precept. Or precept is the process upon processes, the understanding. What differentiates a craftsman from somebody who's stumbling around trying to make something? Well, a craftsman, obviously an artist, what makes them the thing above the other, the skill in that trade, is the very fact that they have memorized the process to a degree of intense levels, or continually, repetitively, over and over again practice this thing. Now, not just practice is involved. We have the yod, the very gift of the hand of the Creator, laid upon one who is standing upright and chasing after the truth of righteousness. We look at our Mashiach, and it says he was a master craftsman. We know that he braided for himself a whip made of leather. And not just any kind of whip, one that could do some very intense damage. I wonder how many people really have thought about what a leather tradesman, leather craftsman, what that meant in those times. It's still almost kind of, if you can, 100 years ago, you could still look at the wonder of what is contained within leatherworking and braiding and whip making. There's an intense amount of skill, process, leveling, understanding exactly how to do something like that, and he did it in an afternoon. Now, in one afternoon, for one who braids leather to sit down and make an entire whip in just a few hours means that one is very skilled at this thing. So not only do we have leather that he is skilled at, but a craftsman obviously understands the processing of step by step, a little bit by little bit, here and there. We will understand this thing. And then the precept upon the precept, the thing that makes the process true, the absolute pattern that never changes, that layers upon itself like the building stones of Yasharal. Sevens, a pattern of sevens, a pattern of sevens. In Nun Shabbat, I call it the Nun Shabbat, the 14th day of the Omer count, or Abib, we see also the 14th day is the Shabbat, which correlates and links together through, again, an unnormal division between the 7th and the 1st. And we see the layering upon of the noon summit, but yet a cutting off and a clear division saying, okay, we are done with this. On the 4th day of this pattern, since Yom Kavarim, we reach Yom Shabbat noon, and then at noon, at the even Erev Laila, again, like the Tat was, at the Erev Laila, there is a cutting off, a complete darkness in between here and there. This is the same night that we see Yahweh bring in the death angel into Mitzrayim and slay all of the firstborn of those who were not covered by the Pesach lamb of the prior 4 days in the month of Abib. Because also on the 10th day of the month of Abib, we see the Pesach lamb coming within, the sacrifice, the slaying. Cover this part. Put the blood upon your doorposts for the night of the Pesach, for the death angel comes. And set yourselves apart, go within your complete kafar that we have been working with for the past 4 days, because you entered into the kafarim on the middle branch day, on the fourth day, you entered into Yom Kavarim, and for 4 more days you actioned a set of praying in which you do not leave your dwelling place. I know that the text doesn't clearly define and discern that, but it definitely alludes to it. And if you go and look at the rabbis' talkings of what they've taken from this, they very clearly show a pattern of 4 days in which you should really stay in prayer. Because the finality, look at Mitzrayim, the finality of the 10 plagues of Egypt are now upon all of Egypt. It's probably a really good time to stay indoors. 3 days and 3 nights, and on the 4th day, at the Erev Laila of the 4th day, you shall, after you finished your Shabbat rest and already inside and covered for Shabbat, so that makes 4 days. At the Erev Laila of the 4th day, we're finished. And Yahweh's Melech will come in, and you will be released on the very next day to experience the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Matzot. And for 7 days on the 3rd week of this branch, in the 3rd week of the branch of Abib, for 7 days the Feast of Matzot is experienced. So there's this cutting off between Nun and Samik that happens, which clearly is the separation and the circumcision that Yahweh has declared upon Yasharal, the cutting off of the flesh, the circumcising. The Nun and the Samik is that, but even though Nun does layer clearly upon Samik, that's the reason we've got to undo that and put it back together the right way. With the spiritual nefesh, this understanding, clearly for 7 days now we experience the festival of Matzot, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, where the Mashiach is taken away. Remember to eat that of the unleavened bread of Mashiach during this time, because he says this is when it will happen. You guys are going to get really hungry in the 3rd branch in the 30,000th year, and at the end of that, the Mashiach, at the dawning of the 4th week, the 1st day of the 4th week, the 22nd day of Abib, you shall stop your counting for Abib, and now begin your count of weeks. And festival, celebrate this day as Aleph Tav, the beginning and the ending and the beginning, to start again. Aleph Tav, Yom Echad, Yom Bikurim, begin your count. Shabbat, Shabbatot, Shabbat, Shabbatot, Shabbat, Shabbatot, Shabbat, Shabbatot, Shabbat, Shabbatot, Shabbat, Shabbatot, Shabbat, Shabbatot. Rest. In the 7th month ye shall rest. And if you do not rest in the 7th Chodesh, ye shall be cut off from among his people. He keeps the pattern. If you do not rest on the 7th day, ye shall be cut off from among your people. If you do not rest on the 7th month, ye shall be cut off from your people. And if you do not rest on the 7th, the last day, the 1st day of every month, you shall be cut off from among your people. So we get to Aleph Tav, Yom Bikurim, the 1st Yom Bikurim, the 1st Feast of First Fruits, when our HaMashiach ascended and rose again after being in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. The middle branch, the 4th day of the Feast of Matzot, correlates to the letter Dadi. The 4th day, the middle branch day that correlates to the letter Zadi, is the only day in which the Mashiach could have been lifted up and put upon the stake, the tree, Tom. Dadi. Why do I say that? Because he said himself, 3 days and 3 nights he was within the tomb, so the Erev Laila of the 4th day he was placed within the tomb, and then for 3 days and 3 nights we came to a conclusion of the tomb, and on the 1st day of the first week, early in the morning after the Shabbat was over, Miriam was in the garden, and the stone had been rolled away. She was running to go and take care of her. She was waiting, not even running, waiting for the morning to take care of her familial responsibilities. That which she had right to do. According to her own numbering and setting of days, she knew exactly what moment this was, and it was hers to do. Of course she knew. So, on the 22nd day, here she stands. Aleph Tav has arisen from his tomb. He's not there anymore. His ascension is about to take place at the dawning of the Yom Echad, the first day of the count of weeks. And every single 7 weeks from that point on the first day, Yom Echad, after count of weeks has been completed, we celebrate the Yom Bikurim again. And Yom Bikurim has an Aleph, a Bet, a Gimel, a Dalet, a Hey, a Vav, and the Zion, the final Yom Terumah, the Zion. The final Yom Terumah, I call it, because there's two, the first and the final. The first to mark the opening of the 7th Chodesh, and the last to mark the coming of Yom Rosh Chodesh. And the Yom Terumah blows the trumpets to announce the 3-day completion of the pattern, which happens at the spring equinox time, which is a fullness, a sign that takes 3 days and 3 nights to complete. And here we come to the most significant and absolute archaeological proof to this keeping of the numbering of days. In the city of Gezer, in the land of Yasharal, Israel, beside the city of David, Dawood, and on its other side, the altar of Yahusha and Caleb, the altar of Joshua. The land of Gezer is the agricultural fields that the king of Israel maintained his crops, some of the most richest crops ever to have been produced. He was known as the most wealthiest of the kings and built the house of Yahweh. Standing at the entrance is a monument stone. Before you arrive to the city of Dawood, a standing stone, and upon its face, before you enter into the city of Dawood, as you're walking along the path, you will encounter this monument stone. And before you can find the path to the altar of Yahusha, you must encounter this stone and look upon its face. All who wanted to enter into the house of Dawood saw this. And here, clearly, at least from the time of Dawood, this stone sets forth an absolute pattern of the 7 Bikurim, relating to accounting of weeks, accounting of Chodesh, accounting of its words. Yerach, Yod, Resh, Chet is what makes separation. 7 lines, 7 times at the almanac calendar to the keeping of the crops of Yasharal, of the king David, discovered by R.A.S. McAllister in 1908 during the Palestine Exploration Fund. What led to the finding of the city of Dawood. This stone was the first thing they found. It was the first thing uncovered, and upon it is paleographic Hebrew, the very oldest representation that we have of any kind of the pictorial paleographic Hebrew. Yet here sits a stone that has been untranslated, pretty much thrown to the side, and nobody really wants to talk about it or even recognize it exists. The translations that the Jewish and even other professionals of the language have given to it is an abomination. and nowhere near the actual translation of the stone itself. In fact, in the place of Abib, they have gone so far to say that it is the name of one of their deities that they call Abiyah. But yet clearly on the corner post, Abib is marked blaringly Abib, the corner field. And then a line of sevens 7 times. Total perfect pattern going up and down and sideways and forwards, and clearly the hand of Abba Yahweh who set forth the letters in this stone, their positionings, all of it. So here is solid archaeological rock proof that Dawood kept to a calendar which marked 7 months and no more, except for that of Abib, set apart. There are not 8 lines on this calendar, there's 7. Now how do the Jews try and count this in? Well, they just randomly pick which line they want to mean 2 months instead of 1 month. How did they do that? It's the exact same word in every instance except the first month. Yod Drash Chet Yerach. And in the first set it says Yod Resh Chet Nun Asaf Aleph Sei Samek Pei Yod Resh Chet Yerach. Yerachun Asaf Yerach in the first line. Second line Yerach. Third line Yerach. Fourth line Yerach. Fifth line Yerach. Sixth line Yerach. Seventh line Yerach. How did they change? The second words have nothing to do with numbers. The third words, there's no more than 3 words except in the instance of 1 linkage for every line. In the third line, the final word is pashit, linen, flax, pei shin tav. And we see this sheen that is so beautiful. It's like it's made little, it's connected with this tav, and the sheen isn't harsh. It's not devouring teeth. It looks like tatas, amama, sheen, pashit, pei shin tav. And the third branch, in the third line, the last word, the third word. What did Yahusha say about the mothers who guarded within them the leaven, the good leaven of Yahweh, the clean part that does not puff up, but leaves a holding humility and kindness and love and gentleness within her heart, and teaching it to her children? Pashit. The processes of the flax and the linen clearly defines a feminine aspect to the crops of linen and flax. In Dawood's stone, it sure does. In his monument stone, the only monument stone left, the calendar, 50 days, 50 years, a week of weeks. We don't stop counting a week of weeks. It goes on and on. Did we reach, let's look at this in years. Does this make any sense in years? Let's count 50 years and a week and stop. Now let's count the years 12 by 30 from now on. We did it one time. That didn't work. It doesn't work. You lose track. You don't know how to count the 365th day. You don't know where Shabbat is. And so you decide as long as you just keep one of the 7, then you're going to be okay. No, it doesn't work that way. Only one of the 7 is right. If you pick any other one, then you're wrong. You're not on the right day to sit down with Yahweh. He sat down on a different day. And he marks it really clearly every single year, so we can see and know exactly what day is the 7th day. And it never changes. It never moves. Just like a Roman calendar never changes and it never moves its naming of days. That's the only way they could keep track. They change their numbers all the time. Sometimes we have 21 days, or 28 days. Sometimes we have 31 days. They change the numbers of the months, but they never change or skip. We never go from Tuesday to Thursday, not even in a leap year. It's the only way you can keep track. no, you can't do it by a crescent lunar moon. Even in the own Jewish encyclopedia, it makes clear that you are looking at something that set Israel off so bad that they couldn't even rely on it themselves, and they finally decided to just pick a day and blow the shofar that day, and we'll call it the crescent moon that happened every 30 days. Well, the moon doesn't even keep to a pattern of 30 days. It keeps to a pattern of 7 weeks. Look at it. It absolutely completes a full turning cycle in 7 weeks. And in the first month and the 4th month and the 7th month, we have the brand new moon, which clearly has been tagged as the reason to start every month, which isn't. Only in the 1st month and the 4th month and the 7th month do we see the clear newness, brand new dawning of a new moon. Which makes sense, because it should be made new in the 1st branch and the 4th branch and the 7th branch. That's the sign. That's the continual moving, the 3 different things that happen. In the 4th branch are Mashiach, the 4,000th year, the dawning at the very beginning, after 731 years has gone through darkness, and we're really hungry now. Ezekiel has gone through the prophesying of how long southern Yehuda would go without having a king, and then at the dawning of the 4th day, the 4,000th year since creation, Mashiach rises. Yahushua HaMashiach, right on time, the baby boy born at the very center of the year. Dalet, 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 still marked today as being the time of Sukkot, when it is not, because we're looking at the 4th month, not the 7th month. The time of Sukkot comes in the 7th month, not the 4th month. In the 4th month, at the very center, the Dalet of the Dalet, in all of this, we see the rising of Mashiach, his very day of birth, when he crested forth from his mother's womb. This very exact moment, we saw the exact same representation happen in the year 2017, when the sign and the stars declared this whole calendar. The whole counting and numbering, the starting of the days, the time when she became pregnant, and the sun and the moon and the stars, everything aligned perfectly within her, and she carried a baby for 40 weeks. And at the end of the 40 weeks, we came to September 27th, September 28th, and September 29th. For reference sakes, I'm going to do that. But really, on the calendar, it was Dalet, Dalet, Dalet. The Dalet branch, the Dalet month, the Dalet, the dawning, the rising, the very center of everything. And only because of the pattern of the week of Abib set, because otherwise it would be right at the first dawning, which, like Yahusha came as at the first dawning, but his birth, like we see this whole pattern come out. And then, Dalet, Dalet, of it all, at the rising of the sun, at the coming of the king, he comes. And it's still marked today as the festival of Sukkot. Though it isn't. The festival of Sukkot, like I said, it falls in the 7th month. And how they managed to do all of that and layer it all right, that's a bunch of magician work right there. A whole bunch of it. And a lot of numbers and different things. But clearly it's pointing to something significant happening at this moment. And the stars declared it was the birth of the son, of Mashiach. So what am I saying? Mashiach said it himself. He said, I am not the final one. There is one who will come after me, but he will not come until the dawning of the end of the last 1,000 years, the last day. At the dawning of the last day, Shabbat, your Mashiach, our Mashiach, the Mashiach of the final age, will be born again and will walk upon the earth, and all flesh will see him. So between here and then, until this 2,730-year curse of Ezekiel, the great time of darkness, when there shall be no light except that of Yachanan and Miriam, the ones left the gift at the end, the timing of the end, when Yahushua was upon the cross, he looked at them and said, here, behold your mother, behold your son, take care of my sheep, Peter, Petros. In this, we see a wholeness, completion, again, the final seventh branch. In the very center, we come to Sukkot. So what does that mean? It means we are not going to Sukkot with our king until after we reach the fourth week, the middle, after Yom Kaffarim has happened in the third week set of years, and in the fourth set of years of the seventh week, the seventh branch, the whole last day, the Shabbat, we shall enter in with our king at the tabernacle, and all of this shall be completed. But yet we're not jumping to the end yet, because first we have to go through 21 days. Yeah, 21 days. And on the 22nd day will we begin to be prepared to meet with our king. 21 years, at least, before we're fully washed and cleansed and know and are prepared to keep this feast with him. We've got practices. We've got 21 years of practices. Good practices. Practices that are different from all the others, because now you're on the right day. It makes all the difference. It really does. I've been doing it for 3 years. It makes all the difference. And here we come to the seventh month. And if we count out and we number the days of the seventh month, combined with the month of Abib, which is festival still, all the month of Abib, he says the seventh month in the month of Abib is festival. Don't move, Yashadal, until after Matzot and Bikoror. The first Bikurim is over. So you're gathered from Yom Terumah, the first day of the seventh month. And Yashadal, don't move from among your brothers until we get to the 22nd day of Abib. That way you were all gathered for all three festivals, my festivals, the main ones of Yasharal, for a total of 77 days. Nowadays, if you look at the Jewish calendar, all peoples cry out, how are we supposed to keep that commandment? Abba, you got, first we have Pesach in the first month, and we're pretty close. You guys are within a week of the actual day when it comes to Pesach, and you're pretty close. And then we get to Yom Bikurim, and that we can be gathered for, right? Those two. But then you have this middle of the year Sukkot that happens sometime around the week of September 21st to October 2nd, and we have a misplacement here. For 150 days, are we supposed to live together but really not be together so that we can all be? Are we supposed to gather together just for this week and then leave again? Because that's a lot of work, and I do that 3 times a year so that Yashadal may come up to Yashadal 3 times a year to give offers to Yahweh. Or does it make a lot more sense that at the timing of the end of the year, when winter is about upon us, and on the first day of the 7th month, all of Yashadal be gathered and continually be gathered and covered together for the next 77 days to fully participate in all 3 of the main festivals in which you are to be gathered for, and then go on about your business for the next 6 months. Or the next 6 weeks of weeks. So I think I've come to just about the ending here. Gonna take a break and let you chew on that a minute. I love you guys.